So Nintendo just held their Nindy, I guess, showcase, and it was interesting, to say the least. And there were some pretty cool games actually announced during it, so I want to do a quick rundown of it and give my impressions on it. If you watch the presentation, you know that indie games really run the gamut. Some are developed by one or two people, some look comparable to AAA titles, and some are like this "mom hid my game" crap. You know, I had to talk about this ridiculousness. This game looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint. If you didn't see anything of it, the gameplay, it's like a point-and-click find game. You're like looking for your 3DS or something. I don't know. It looked horrible. This did not deserve to be featured here or anywhere, really. If you're going to release this type of game on your system, this is something you bury in the game releases section. You certainly don't put a spotlight on it in a presentation like this. It makes you look like a joke, honestly. I mean, look at this game and tell me, and I know this whole presentation, we're focused on indies, it's an indie game, but if this game appeared during a Sony or Microsoft presentation, don't forget, when they do their stuff, they always have some kind of, indie showcase segment, and they bring people out to show their indie games. Imagine you have some guy come out on stage at a Sony or Microsoft presentation, and they're like, okay, check a look at this, and you see this start playing. If that happened during one of those type of conferences, it would be the biggest joke on the gaming side of the internet. But it's Nintendo, so no one seemed surprised, and that in itself is the problem. This game did not belong here. Even amongst these other indie titles, it stood out like a sore thumb. This game didn't deserve to be here. It doesn't deserve to exist as a paid game. I'm sorry, I see Flash games all over the internet that look 10 times better than this. Honestly, bad on Nintendo for showcasing this. It was a joke. It's just, I'm irritated. I'm triggered. I'm triggered about this. I'm being honest. I think I would love to know who made the call to put that on there, and they need to be fired. It's just unacceptable to me. But anyway, that's most of my negative out of the way. I wanted to get it done at the beginning. So, sure, when you have indie games, you're going to have some garbage slip through the cracks. I'm just saying, you don't need to waste time on it in this official Nintendo video. That's really the crux of why I think this was insane. But there was a lot of cool stuff shown here as well. Meat Boy, of course, is coming over. Shovel Knight is getting more DLC, which I'm going to support on the Switch for sure, because I feel like, Yacht Club Games really went above and beyond in providing Nintendo players with the best experience for this game when it was originally released. Whether it be, porting it to the 3DS or making the co-op mode, originally at least it was exclusive to the Shovel Knight amiibo. Essentially, Nintendo felt like the best place to play the game at a time where many weren't behind them. So yeah, definitely will be picking that up. Some other stuff I noted that stood out to me, the Golf Story game. I don't know what it is, but I thought that seemed awesome. They pitched it as an RPG centered around a golf course, I guess. So there's going to be lots of character interaction, questing, etc., as well as obviously golfing. Just seemed like a really cool idea. I'm definitely going to be following that. There was the side-scrolling beat-em-up, Dragon Marked for Death. I feel like beat-em-ups are kind of becoming a forgotten genre outside of the indies. I mean, these were like a mainstay in the SNES days, and you don't really see new ones now that often, at least. So definitely want to keep an eye on that as well. And with that in mind, the 9 Parchment game, I also thought that looked sweet. Sort of an ARPG style game in the vein of Diablo, etc. 4-player co-op in that one as well, always a plus. The Morphe's Law shooter, it's kind of surprising to me, honestly, how Nintendo kind of went from like being devoid of shooters to almost cornering the market on the interesting ones overnight, as I guess console-wise, this is going to be a Nintendo exclusive. And in the game, as you shoot people, you take their mass, making your character bigger and their character smaller. Sort of an interesting way to balance things between players and novices, as the more you hit people, the bigger the target you become, and the more you get hit, the smaller and more difficult to hit you'll become. And I guess, like, the team with the most total mass at the end wins or something like that. I don't know, just cool concept. Anytime we can delineate from the standard deathmatch, capture the flag, etc. type stuff, I'm down. And then, of course, there was the main event, the return of Travis Touchdown in No More Heroes. If you're unfamiliar, No More Heroes was a bit of a cult classic series for the Wii. Definitely a departure from the typical kid-friendly Nintendo themes. Obviously, this is a big get for Nintendo. The series is back to having an exclusive title to their platform. However, there was no gameplay. Always a bit of a problem for me. And on top of that, there's been a lot of speculation on what this game is actually going to be. How it's going to play. Sounds like it might be a smaller spin-off deal rather than a main entry, but we'll see. I'm reserving my hype on this until I hear some more concrete details on what it's actually going to be. I mean, I'm very interested, obviously. I really enjoyed the first 2 games. And either way, I'm really hoping this means we get some sort of collection of the past games for the Switch. I know this is a franchise a lot of people aren't going to be familiar with, and the indie nomenclature may cause a lot of people to be hesitant to jump onto this, so I think a release of the first 2 games could really go a long way in promoting this. Overall, while indies may not be held to the same level of esteem as AAA games, they're certainly closing the gap in some cases, and Nintendo really relies on these to hold us over between their major releases, so to me, it's always worth supporting the ones that stand out, and especially ones like Yacht Club Games, which, as I mentioned, was focused on giving us the definitive Shovel Knight experience in the Wii U days, when no one else really seemed to give a crap about Nintendo players. People remember that stuff. But on Nintendo, you really got to tighten things up, I think, on the games you choose for this stuff. That just... I'm sorry. I mean, it might seem... I'm sure a lot of you are going to tell me like I'm just overreacting to this, but that just... As I was watching it, it totally like drew me out of the whole deal, and like even for the next couple games that they were showing, I just couldn't help but keep thinking about how dumb that game looked. And how it just doesn't... That is not the type of game that belongs on a core gaming console. That stuff can fly on like an iPad or a smartphone, but that does not need to be here. That does not need to be on the Nintendo Switch. It just makes it look ridiculous. It's kind of like I was saying, I just did that video about mobile games, how I don't want there to be that perception. Is it worth it to have a game like Mom Hid My Game console, whatever the it's called? Is it worth it to have that game for, like, how many people are even interested in it? How many people are even going to buy it? And the fact that everyone else is going to have to look at it, like, you're going to have to look at new game releases when that game comes out. You're going to click new game releases on Nintendo Switch, and that's going to be staring at you. You're just going to be like, man, where are we? But, yeah, other than that, I thought it was a good show. And with that, this video is a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Nintendo's latest indie showcase in the comments. Did anything stand out to you? As always, I'm John Zakari, and thanks for watching.